I've decided to start a new life without you. Gregory whispered it like a final blow, reaching for his keys, smirking as he stood. Bianca just sat there, silent, eyes fixed on the envelope she'd placed beside his plate. He didn't even notice. He turned toward the door. One step, two steps, but before his hand even touched the doorknob, her voice cut through the air. "Check the envelope, Gregory." The restaurant went dead silent. What he found inside, it shattered everything. Welcome to Revenge with Luke. Let's uncover what really happened. The crystal bowl trembled under her fingertip, shards of light fracturing across the polished table. A single droplet of champagne slid down the stem of Gregory's flute as he spoke the words that shattered everything. "I've decided to start a new life without you." In that moment, the gentle clinks of silverware turned into distant thunder. Bianca felt her pulse hammer in her ears, each beat a reminder of betrayal slicing through her chest. Time slowed. She watched her wedding ring slip from her finger, spinning once before dropping into the bowl of shattered glass. The world spun with it. Faces blurred. Friends who once smiled now stared, mouths half open in suspended surprise. Amelia's mortarboard was askew. Her daughter's eyes, wide and uncomprehending, searched for guidance. Cassandra sat behind them, shoulders tight, guilt flickering in her gaze. A heat wave of humiliation washed over Bianca, but instead of tears or a dramatic exit, she pressed her lips into a calm line. Her fingertips brushed the envelope she'd placed beside Gregory's charger plate. A delicate cream-colored seal held months of silent planning. "Not revenge. You think you broke me, but you awakened something stronger." That's when the hum of the restaurant returned, as if the world exhaled, waiting for her next move. She inhaled deeply, tasting the faint tang of spilled wine and crisp linens. Heart pounding like a drum, she rose. Glass tumbled in slow motion as she stood, shoulders squared. "Congratulations on your honesty," she said, voice steady and measured. A soft gasp rippled through the room, shattering the tension like brittle ice. She smiled, an ember of defiance glowing in her chest. She kissed Amelia's cheek, her touch warm and real. "This day is still yours." Then she stepped away from the table, each footfall a declaration. "I am not broken." The heavy doors swung open, and the sultry summer air of Augusta wrapped around her like a promise. Behind her, the restaurant's windows reflected a woman walking into the sunlight, leaving shattered glass and broken expectations behind. She pressed her back against the cool metal of the car door, sliding down until the hem of her dress pooled around her knees. The storm inside her roared, but she let herself sink into the quiet for a moment. Her mind replayed the years she'd buried beneath polite smiles and whispered reassurances. Late nights poring over spreadsheets, phone calls with anxious clients, PDA meetings squeezed into lunch breaks. Each sacrifice a stitch in a tapestry no one could see. Her fingers traced invisible lines across her forearm, recalling the tension of balancing budgets for his ventures that collapsed, the sting of telling Amelia bedtime stories through the crackle of a headset, the ache of shelving her own dreams for a steady paycheck. She remembered the tightening in her chest when he announced his midlife crisis, resigning from a stable job to chase handcrafted furniture fantasies, and how she'd covered the mortgage with a second shift at Trevenna Corporation. Invisible scars, she thought, are the deepest cuts. A jaybird's call echoed down the parking lot, and she closed her eyes, letting the cool May breeze wash over her skin. The tang of magnolia blossoms drifted on the wind. She inhaled, exhaled. Pain was one thing, but regret was a poison she refused to swallow. She pressed her palms flat against her thighs. The fabric of her dress was damp with sweat. Below the surface of her calm exterior, something hardened. Months of monitoring transfers, building her case, stepping through legal clauses in her mind. Every detail sharpened her resolve. She'd been invisible for too long, the caretaker behind the curtain. But now, the world would see those hidden wounds and reckon with the force they'd forged. She straightened, smoothing the front of her dress as she slid her wedding ring back onto her finger. not to reclaim what was lost, but to remind herself who she was, a woman of boundaries, of unspoken strength, of scars that would not define her, but would fuel her transformation. And with that, she stepped away from the car, each footfall echoing promise, invisible no more. The envelope rested against the linen napkin, its cream color stark against the polished mahogany. Bianca's fingers hovered for a heartbeat before she slid it a hair's breadth closer to Gregory's plate, an unspoken gauntlet. Inside, pages of meticulously documented betrayal, bank statements, text logs, divorce filings, the ironclad prenuptial clause he'd forgotten. A silent verdict waiting to be read. She recalled how each detail had been uncovered. Late nights in the home office, the glow of her laptop illuminating her determined face. Tiny transfers she'd flagged first. $50 here, $100 there, seeming inconsequential until patterns emerged, like tributaries feeding a river of deceit. Cassandra's name flickered across his phone screen. Lavish dinners, property tours, whispered plans. She charted their betrayal in spreadsheets, each cell a memorial to his greed. Across the table, Gregory's gaze flickered to the envelope, curiosity igniting panic in his eyes. He cleared his throat, raising his glass as if to toast, but the words caught in his throat. The room hushed. Silverware stilled. She felt the weight of every watcher's gaze, 1,000 unspoken questions hanging in the air. And that's when it snapped. Bianca inhaled the scent of jasmine from the centerpiece. Her pulse throbbed in her temples, steady as a metronome marking time until judgment. She remembered the hush before a thunderclap, the pregnant pause before action. In her chest, a quiet flame ignited. No longer the caretaker, but the arbiter of her own destiny. Her lips curved into a faint, practiced smile. "Something for you to read later," she said, voice calm as a lawyer's closing argument. Silence stretched. Then, murmurs rippled like a brush across canvas. Amelia's hand found hers under the table. A tremor exchange between mother and daughter, fear and solidarity intertwined. Bianca stood, smoothing the fabric of her dress as if shedding an old skin. She tipped her chin toward the doorway. The heavy door swung open, sunlight sweeping in like revelation. Behind her, a hush settled over the room. Ahead, the world awaited her first step into truth. She walked out, her heels clicking, a heartbeat of defiance echoing down the corridor. The envelope remained behind, a ticking bomb of reckoning set to detonate the life she once knew. She parked on a side street and killed the engine, but her mind raced in overdrive. Beneath the calm exterior lay currents of anger and purpose. Each plan she had made, every late-night document unearthed, pulsed beneath her skin. The driveway's cracked asphalt felt foreign under her heels, a threshold between the life she'd lost and the life she was about to claim. Bianca pressed her forehead against the steering wheel, tasting adrenaline mixed with magnolia-scented air. Months earlier, those same air molecules would have drifted unnoticed as she balanced bills and bedtime stories. Now, every sensation was heightened. The scrape of leather against her palm, the hum of cicadas rising from the oaks overhead, the faint echo of her own heartbeat. Under the surface, she was awake in ways she never wanted to be. She thought of the irregular transfers, $5,000 one week, $12,000 the next, into an account he assumed she'd never find. She'd traced breadcrumbs of deceit back to Cassandra's boutique estate listings, each click revealing a new fracture in his facade. How many nights had she lain awake, listening for the distinctive click of his phone unlocking, the rustle of text messages between them? How many mornings had she feigned sleep while her mind cataloged every lie? Her chest tightened. Regret? No. Liberation. Each discovery had peeled back layers of complacency, exposing her own resilience. She fingered the prenuptial agreement text on her phone. Section 12, Fidelity Clause, still in force. The document he'd once insisted upon to protect his dreams was now the key to his downfall. With a deep exhale, she unlocked the door and stepped onto the pavement. The street lamp overhead flickered, as if signaling her resolve. She pulled her clutch from the passenger seat, a slim black case that housed her attorney's contact info, emergency court filings, a copy of the divorce petition poised for action. Everything she needed was at her fingertips. Ahead, the house loomed, empty, echoing with memories she no longer recognized. Biographical snapshots of family weekends flickered through the windows. But those images belonged to another version of herself, the invisible caretaker, the trusting wife. That Bianca was gone. She lifted her chin, feeling the warm dusk breeze kiss her cheeks. Under the surface, a storm raged, but on the outside, she walked with purpose, each step a promise. No more shadows, no more silences. Today, the real reckoning began. Stacks of paper fanned across the marble countertop, edges crisp and authoritative. Bianca slid a fresh highlighter across the dates. June 14th, August 3rd, November 27th. Each line illuminating a new chapter of deceit. Text messages printed in stark black ink showed Cassandra's name alongside talk of beachfront showings and secret celebrations. Photographs of receipts, candlelit dinners at Le Jardin, sparkly bracelets wrapped in silk, told a tale of luxury financed on joint savings. Her reflection shimmered in the stainless steel faucet as she leaned in, eyes scanning every pixel for inconsistencies. The spreadsheets glowed on her laptop screen, columns labeled personal and joint, numbers migrating like chess pieces toward a hidden account. She had traced every $68, $2.20 funneled out in monthly doses to a Citibank account he thought she wouldn't notice. She remembered the knot in her stomach the first time she saw that transfer pop up on her routine bank review. Shock turned to disbelief, then to calculated resolve. A soft buzz from her phone pulled her back. Amelia's text, "Mom, are you okay?" Under the evidence lay her daughter's concern, a reminder that this fight wasn't just hers. With a steady thumb, Bianca typed back, "I'm managing. Trust me." She gathered the paperwork into neat stacks. Legal filings first, bank statements next, then personal logs of their conversations, recorded with careful consent, where Gregory outlined plans to announce their split at Amelia's graduation. She tucked the cream-colored envelope into her bag, its contents now reflected in her meticulous preparation. Every shred of evidence would become her ammunition. The kitchen's overhead lights hummed, spotlighting the transformation of her family home into a command center. She remembered the late nights seated at this very island, helping with homework, folding laundry, pretending everything was fine. Now, she stood here, fully awake, each document a testament to her rebirth. She closed her laptop with a soft click and inhaled the faint scent of lemon cleaner and determination. Hands pressed flat against the cool marble, she let the gravity of her evidence settle into her bones. No longer hidden, no longer invisible, she was armed with truth. With one final glance at the papers, she picked up her bag. The envelopes, spreadsheets, and recordings had done their work. Outside, the night waited, a canvas for her next move. And she was ready. Bianca stood in Diana's sunlit study, walls lined with leather-bound law tomes and well-worn poetry volumes. Diana, her sister and fiercest ally, spread the prenuptial agreement across the oak desk. The inked clauses glowed like runes: fidelity, asset division, stipulations surviving divorce. Bianca's pulse quickened. Here lay her blueprint. Diana tapped section 12 with a silver letter opener. "Fidelity remains binding until the last day of marriage," she said, voice steady. "He signed this to protect potential business assets 28 years ago. Now it protects you." Bianca nodded, the gravity settling in her chest like armor. They sketched a timeline on a notepad. The day Bianca discovered the transfers, the date of the secrecy-laced texts, the precise moment Gregory intended his public exit. Each mark a strategic strike, each date a domino set to fall. Diana's pen moved with purpose, outlining court deadlines, emergency filings, temporary injunctions. Bianca watched the neat script and felt the first stirrings of control. Flashbacks flickered, Nights spent questioning her own instincts, afternoons hiding her phone when it buzzed with evidence, mornings feigning delight at a husband who'd already abandoned his vows. Now, in this room filled with legal gravitas, her suppressed anger transmuted into focused strategy. Diana leaned back, eyes softening. This isn't just paperwork. It's your shield. Bianca let the words in, letting their weight solidify her resolve. She flexed her hands, imagining the prenuptial clause as a blade. Precise, unbreakable, once wielded only in theory. A gentle breeze drifted through the open window, carrying the scent of magnolias and whispered hopes. Bianca inhaled, then exhaled, feeling the line between victim and victor crystallize. She slipped the pen from Diana's hand and scribbled beneath their plan. Execute day before graduation announcement. Diana offered a small, proud smile. He won't see it coming. Bianca returned the smile. No warmth, but a promise. Rules of engagement laid bare. She knew every move would matter. Each legal maneuver, each deadline, each clause invoked would be a step toward reclaiming her life. She gathered the documents, feeling their weight like a second skin. Outside, the world swirled with oblivious lives. Inside, a quiet war plan glowed in her grip. And Bianca was ready to fight. The phone lay face down on the mahogany desk. Each ring, each notification light promised another escalation. But Bianca's thumb hovered over the screen, refusing to answer. She'd learned that in war, sometimes the deadliest weapon was silence. Earlier that day, Gregory's frantic texts had flooded her inbox. "Where are you? Open the door. This is a mistake." She read them once, then archived them. Responding would invite negotiation. Silence ensured his panic grew louder in empty rooms. She sat on the edge of the leather armchair, legs crossed, her reflection a ghost in the window pane. Outside, cicadas hummed, an unbroken drone that matched her steady heartbeat. Breath by breath, she drew the heat of midday into her lungs and released it like ritual. The silence became her ally, a shield against his desperate pleas. Memories flickered, him questioning her loyalty when she grilled him about the hidden account, her polite deflections, the thundercloud in his eyes. She'd stayed silent then, drowning in disbelief. Now, silence was intentional, an active force she wielded. She pictured each unanswered call as a chess move, pushing Gregory into unfamiliar territory. Her phone buzzed again, a single vibration in the hush. Bianca allowed herself a small, victorious smile before flipping the device face down. She closed her eyes, letting the weight of his absence settle in her bones. No voice on the other end could break the solidity she'd built. A memoir lay open on the coffee table, her late father's advice scrawled in the margins. Speak only with purpose. She'd never understood how true that was until now. She rose and walked to the window, smoothing her dress. The magnolia tree outside swayed in the breeze, petals drifting like faint confessions. She poured herself a glass of water, the ice clinking, a soft percussion in the stillness. Each sip grounded her further, reminding her that power often spoke with hushed tones. She tucked the phone into her purse, alongside the divorce papers and evidence files, sealing them like secrets. Later, when Gregory realized his words echoed into nothingness, panic would turn to uncertainty. And that's when it would snap, when he understood she had mastered the art of calculated silence, the silence that would unravel everything he thought he controlled. The courthouse portal blinked open before dawn. Bianca's fingers trembled as she clicked submit, sending the divorce petition into the court system exactly 24 hours before Gregory's planned graduation day announcement. A confirmation email arrived almost instantly. Case hashtag 2025 DIV 317 filed. She read the words twice, tasted their finality. Her first strike was surgical precise. No confrontation, no fanfare, just the silent force of law. In the dusky light of her office, the glow of her laptop screen illuminated the edge in her eyes. She imagined Gregory waking to check his email, expecting celebratory texts about his new life, only to find the legal instrument that would derail his dreams. Later, she watched from a nearby cafe window as the morning sun spilled across the driveway of their home. She pictured him retrieving the paper, cold, impersonal, yet devastatingly real. The thought sent a shiver down her spine. Power could be excruciating. Her coffee sat untouched before her. Steam curled from the cup like smoke from a dart, reminding her of the quiet weapon she'd just fired. Around her, everyday life unfolded. Joggers on the sidewalk, a mail carrier delivering letters, a child chasing a soccer ball, all oblivious to the private explosion she'd ignited. She scrolled through the filing receipt again, filed by Bianca Caldwell, attorney Diana Wells. Her sister's name comforted her, a guardian standing watch. Every clause cited was a brick in the wall around her future. Every signature a barrier against betrayal. In her mind, a news alert popped up. Divorce petition filed against Gregory Caldwell. She pictured the headline on the local morning site, the first public crack in his veneer. And that's when it snapped. The moment he realized this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment anger, but the culmination of months spent gathering proof and steel. She closed her laptop and folded her hands in her lap, heart pounding. The first strike had landed. Now she waited for the tremors to echo through his carefully constructed facade and through the halls of their shared history. The battle lines were drawn. The next move would determine everything. Amelia's voicemail light blinked insistently, but Bianca hesitated before calling back. She knew the fallout wasn't limited to contracts and courtrooms. Her daughter's heart lay in the crossfire. Tonight, in the silence of Amelia's dorm room, the walls would reverberate with questions about wedding rings and whispered betrayals. Bianca slipped into the darkened hallway, the carpet soft under her heels. Outside Amelia's door, she paused, inhaling the faint scent of lavender from the air freshener. She eased the door open and found her daughter curled on the bed, graduation regalia draped over her legs. The mortarboard lay face down, the tassel tangled. "Mom!" Amelia's voice cracked like porcelain under pressure. Bianca perched on the edge of the mattress, tracing the tear streak on her daughter's cheek. "I heard. I'm so sorry." Her own words tasted hollow. Collateral damage. Amelia's final triumph had become the backdrop for a marital earthquake. Amelia's jaw clenched. "Dad said you did this to embarrass him. That I embarrassed him." Each word landed like a shard. Bianca swallowed. "I did this for us, all of us. You deserve a life without secrets." But the explanation felt like a feeble shield against her daughter's hurt. Amelia sat up, pulling knees to her chest. "I wanted tonight to be about me, Mom. Now it's all about him, about you." Bianca reached out, brushing tangled hair behind Amelia's ear, the fabric of her own dress still crinkled from the restaurant. "I know, but you're not collateral in this. You're my priority." A thin smile flickered as Amelia's tears slowed. "Promise me, no more games." Bianca's chest tightened with remorse and determination. The battle for her life had unintended casualties. "I promise," she whispered. "No more silence." Outside, the campus lights shimmered, distant and detached. Bianca stayed until Amelia's breathing steadied, each rise and fall a fragile truce in their shared aftermath. The weight of collateral damage pressed on her. Her daughter's trust had fractured too. But in that soft moment, mother and daughter began to rebuild, one tender apology at a time. The hallway stretched before Bianca like a corridor of memories. Family portraits lined the walls, wedding photos, Amelia's first birthday, summer barbecues. Each frame held a moment she once cherished, now haunting reminders of what had been. Her heels clicked against the hardwood floor, echoing in the empty space. She paused before the photograph of Gregory teaching Amelia to ride her bike. The image captured pure joy, Gregory's outstretched arms, Amelia's triumphant grin. She touched the glass, tracing the frozen moment. Ghosts in the hallway, she thought, every snapshot a specter of happier times. Ahead, the master suite door stood ajar. Inside, the unmade bed lay tangled with sheets the way they left it that morning. A single cufflink glinted on the nightstand, a token of his habitual neatness. She held her breath, as though the house itself sighed around her, mourning the life that once filled its rooms. Bianca stepped into the study, where his leather-bound journals rested on the shelf. She opened one at random, the pages filled with business aspirations, travel plans, sketches of beach houses they never bought. She closed it gently, a silent farewell to the future they'd envisioned together. Down the hall, the sound of her own breathing grew loud in her ears. She felt Cassandra's presence behind her, as if the younger woman's laughter still lingered in corners, echoes of clandestine dinners and whispered promises. The walls held secrets she had peeled away with evidence, but the echoes remained. She moved to the guest room, where Diana once slept during visits. The lavender pillows smelled faintly of her sister's perfume. Bianca smoothed the quilt, gathering frayed edges, as though mending the fabric of her fractured life. The act felt both futile and necessary. At the hallway's end, the front door waited, its brass handle worn by countless arrivals and departures. Bianca placed her hand on it, feeling the cool metal, the threshold between past and future. She inhaled deeply, the scent of polished wood and magnolia drifting through the open window. One last look down the corridor, a gallery of ghosts, each waiting for their story to end. She exhaled, releasing the weight of memories that had tethered her. With steady resolve, she turned the handle and stepped outside, the hallway specters fading behind her as she walked toward a life reclaimed. The judge's ruling arrived like a bolt of winter lightning. Frozen assets, joint accounts sealed until further notice. Bianca held the notice in her hands as though it were a trophy, her pulse humming with relief and vindication. The words on the paper felt alive. Temporary injunction granted. He could no longer touch the funds he'd siphoned away, could no longer spend their future on secret escapades. She leaned against the courthouse wall, the late morning sun warm on her back. Around her, the world bustled. Lawyers consulting clients, a hot dog vendor calling out lunchtime specials, tourists snapping photos by the fountain. None knew the private tremor that had reverberated through her life just minutes ago. Her phone buzzed, Amelia checking in. Bianca typed back a simple reassurance. Assets frozen. You're safe. The reply came instantly. Thank you, Mom. You're a superhero. A gentle fierceness stirred in her chest. Superhero wasn't far off. She'd harnessed the law itself as her power. She thought of Gregory waking to find his beloved accounts locked, panic surging through his veins as he realized his access had been severed. No more last-minute transfers. No more clandestine purchases. For the first time, he'd feel the cold barrier between what he'd stolen and what truly belonged to her. A breeze swept down Main Street, carrying the scent of fresh paint from the City Hall renovation. Bianca inhaled, tasting freedom. Months of meticulous planning had converged in that courtroom moment. The prenuptial clause, the evidence binders, her sister's unwavering counsel, all crystallized into a barrier stronger than granite. She folded the court notice into her purse and stepped onto the sidewalk. Each stride felt buoyant, as if the world had shifted beneath her feet. She paused to look back at the courthouse steps, imagining the tremors of her victory spreading through the halls of justice. And that's when it snapped. Her private world of betrayal detonated into public triumph. The battle lines had been redrawn, assets frozen, trust shattered, power reclaimed. Bianca walked on, heart steady and eyes bright, ready for whatever came next. Comment, this was me. If you've ever reclaimed your life in an instant. Gregory stood in the driveway, phone pressed to his ear, voice trembling as he tried to placate Cassandra. Bianca passed by the front window and paused, her silhouette framed by the enormity of her conquest. The house looked different now, its columns and shutters suddenly brittle, like plaster over hollow walls. Inside, Cassandra paced the living room, designer heels clicking against hardwood. Anxiety dripped from her voice. He's lost his mind, Gregory. What are you doing? He ran a hand through his hair, eyes darting toward the shuttered office where Bianca had held court earlier. The social circle they once cultivated now fractured. Friends called with polite concern, others with biting curiosity. An invitation to the country club luncheon was rescinded. The circle had tightened, then splintered, and gossip spread faster than wildfire through polite society. Bianca heard the whispers even as she sealed her office door, the faint crackle of rumors grazing her armor. That evening, a mutual friend sent a group text. Anyone heard from the Caldwells? Bianca let it sit unread. Cracks in the facade spread like veins beneath marble, perfect exteriors revealing hidden fractures. She poured herself a glass of red wine, watching the swirl of color deepen in the glass. Each rotation uncovered sediments, imperfections once invisible. She sipped, tasting berry sweetness and something darker, anticipation. The world she'd meticulously reconstructed was settling into new grooves, and she relished the shifting landscape. Amelia appeared in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of hot chocolate. She handed one to her mother, slipping into the soft, worn armchair. Bianca cradled the cup, its warmth seeping into her palms. They shared a quiet moment of solidarity, mother and daughter against the world. "People are talking," Amelia said softly, eyes glimmering. "I don't care," Bianca replied, tone firm yet gentle. "Let them." Below the surface, Bianca felt the tremors, Gregory's desperation, Cassandra's doubt, society's gossip. But above, she stood serene. The cracks in their polished facade revealed truth's raw beauty. No amount of whispers could mend what was broken. No polished veneer could conceal her strength. She exhaled and met Amelia's gaze. "Our story is ours," she said, "not theirs." And for the first time in decades, the world felt both precarious and perfectly aligned under her careful command. Night fell, and the Caldwell house loomed against the inky sky, windows dark and unwelcoming. Bianca approached the front porch, lantern in hand, its warm glow trembling across peeling paint and cracked steps. Memories clung to every corner, laughter echoing in the foyer, Amelia's first steps on these floors, whispered promises between husband and wife that now felt like ghosts dancing in empty rooms. She climbed the steps, each creak a reminder of a life she dismantled and reclaimed. Inside, the grand foyer stretched into shadowed hallways. The air smelled of dust and abandonment, as if the house itself mourned its lost family. Bianca's lantern illuminated family photos hanging crookedly, snapshots of happier days now tinged with sorrow. She reached out, straightening a frame of her wedding day. The image stared back, a younger, hopeful Bianca beside Gregory, both smiling into the future. Upstairs, the master bedroom lay frozen in time. Gregory's neatly packed suitcases rested like silent sentinels in the closet, proof of his planned departure. She ran her hand along the edge of the dresser, where he'd once left cologne and cufflinks. Now, only echoes remained. In the study, her old desk, a battlefield of evidence, waited under a blanket of dust. She brushed it free, uncovering the highlighter stains and printed spreadsheets that had marked her path to justice. The desk chair, once her command center, creaked as she sat, closing her eyes against the hollow quiet. The house had haunted her with its memories. Now she haunted it back with her presence. A gust rattled the window panes, stirring a swirl of leaves against the glass. Bianca opened her eyes and stood, lantern held high. This home was more than brick and wood. It was the vessel of her transformation, a crucible where betrayal had forged her anew. She placed the lantern on the floor, its light dancing across the walls like hopeful embers. Stepping to the window, she gazed at the empty rooms behind her. "This house may hold our past," she whispered, "but it cannot trap my future." She turned away, the lantern's glow shrinking behind her as she walked into the night, free from the house that once haunted her. Bianca surveyed the packed room of women, their faces illuminated by soft stage lights. She stood at the podium of her new consultancy launch, palms steady against the cool wood. This was her heart of the storm, the moment where her private battle became public triumph. The air buzzed with anticipation, the scent of roses mingling with fresh coffee, tension and hope colliding. She opened with a slow breath, scanning the audience. Some of us wear masks every day, she began, voice low but clear. Invisible scars driving us silent. A hush fell, as if her words awakened something buried in the room. The motif of the mask, so central to her own journey, echoed in their eyes. Behind her, a large screen flickered to life, displaying a simple image, a cracked glass pane. The shards reassembled into a phoenix, wings outstretched. Bianca let the silence linger, then pressed the button on her remote. Slides of her story appeared. The crystal bowl, the envelope, the courtroom's gavel. Every image a loop of curiosity left open, urging listeners to lean in. Midway through her talk, she paused, and that's when it snapped. A ripple of energy pulsed through the audience, tension released like air from a balloon. Bianca allowed a faint smile. This wasn't just her story. It was a mirror in which they recognized their own battles. Someone raised a hand, emoji hearts glowing on the screen. Fire. Bianca nodded, welcoming the collective spark. Drop a fire if you've ever felt invisible, she invited. A sea of flaming icons bloomed on phones. Connection blossomed. She shared lessons, legal maneuvers, emotional armor, reclamation strategies, each delivered as a lifeline in turbulent waters. Her voice wavered only once when she described Amelia's tears. She swallowed, letting vulnerability deepen the bond. At the close, Bianca leaned into the mic. If you've carried this kind of pain, hit subscribe. Lights dimmed as applause roared. She stepped back, chest swelling with a new identity. Mentor, advocate, symbol of resilience. As she descended the stage, whispers followed. Thank yous, teary smiles, hands reaching for hers. The storm had raged, but here, in this room, she found her calm. And at its heart, she stood unbroken. The tension crackled like electricity in the conference room as Bianca wrapped up her consultancy pitch. A line of women queued at the registration desk, their expressions a mix of determination and relief. She had offered them tools to reconstruct their lives, and now she felt the push of her own breaking point. Later that evening in her quiet office, Bianca flipped on the desk lamp. The warm glow illuminated rows of client files, each representing a personal storm weathered. She sank into her swivel chair, rubbing tired temples. Her heart raced, adrenaline still coursing from the day's triumph. Victory tasted sweet, but exhaustion lurked beneath. A draft slipped under the door, a letter from Gregory's attorney, demanding she unfreeze the accounts or face contempt. Bianca opened it with deliberate calm. Their demands felt absurd, even comical. She read, "Your actions are vindictive and punitive." Vindictive? She traced each word with a steady finger, feeling anger flare. This was no vendetta. It was justice served cold. Her phone buzzed. Amelia checking in. Bianca typed back, "I'm okay. Almost done." She paused before hitting send, wondering if she was approaching her own edge. Months of planning, the emotional labor, the courtroom battles, they were all driving her toward this moment. Something in her shifted. She realized that if she kept this pace, she'd collapse under the weight of her own fight. She rose and walked to the window, overlooking the city's lights. The skyline glimmered, full of promise and peril. A single tear slid down her cheek, not sorrow but release. And that's when it snapped. The dam of steel she'd built inside finally cracked. She needed a pause, a moment of tenderness before the next wave. Bianca turned and reached for her phone. She dialed Diana's number. Her sister's voice was a lifeline. "I need a break," Bianca whispered. "Tomorrow, let's just breathe." Diana's soft chuckle warmed her. "We will, I promise." In the stillness, Bianca found balance. Even at her breaking point, she knew strength lay in knowing when to rest. She stood in the courtroom's hush as the judge's gavel hovered in the air. Every pair of eyes felt like a lens focusing on her transformation. Across the aisle, Gregory's shoulders slumped, the color drained from his face. He looked more vulnerable than she ever had. And that's when it snapped. The judge's voice cut through the silence. "I rule in favor of Mrs. Caldwell. The prenuptial agreement remains fully enforceable under the fidelity clause." Papers rustled like distant thunder. Bianca's heart pounded. not with fear, but with the exhilaration of justice realized. Every sacrifice, every silent night spent gathering proof, crystallized into this final, undeniable victory. Gregory's attorney gaped, mouth working but words failing him. In that moment, the veneer of his confident smirk shattered. He had believed legal jargon could protect him. Instead, it became his undoing. Bianca watched as the reality of their contract, once his safeguard, turned into her strongest fortress. The prenuptial clause, so meticulously crafted decades ago, had become the sword that severed their past. Her chest swelled with a mix of triumph and relief. She felt the warmth of Amelia's supportive gaze from the gallery and saw Diana nodding with quiet pride. The mask of composure she'd worn for months became unnecessary. Raw authenticity surged through her veins. She was no longer the invisible wife. She was the woman who dismantled an empire of lies. The judge continued. Joint accounts remain frozen pending final asset division. Mrs. Caldwell's personal account will remain accessible for living expenses. Bianca allowed a small, genuine smile. The courtroom's tension cracked, replaced by the soft exhale of closure. Outside, cameras flashed like a storm of bright wings, capturing the moment truth outshone betrayal. Reporters murmured into microphones, dissecting her story. But Bianca let their questions fade into white noise. She had stepped into her power. As she rose to leave, the gallery seemed to part before her, revealing a path unburdened by secrets. And that's when it snapped. Her shackles of doubt and silence broke, sending her soaring into a future she'd forged with unbreakable resolve. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Bianca's new office, illuminating the polished wood floors and the nameplate on her desk, Caldwell Financial Transitions. She inhaled deeply, savoring the scent of fresh paint and possibility. The walls, once bare, now held framed testimonials from clients whose lives she'd helped rebuild. Each story was an ember, glowing proof that even the darkest betrayal could spark renewal. Her first client of the day, a woman clutching a folder thicker than her freshman year textbooks, offered a tentative smile. "I don't know where to start," she admitted. Bianca guided her into the plush armchair, drawing from her own journey. "We start here," she said, tapping the client's folder. "And step by step we rise." The words felt like a mantra forged in fire. Between sessions, Bianca poured herself a cup of chamomile tea. The steam curled upward, carrying with it calm she'd once deemed impossible. She gazed out at the city skyline. Buildings that had once symbolized her past life solidity now stood as beacons of her future. She'd transformed from caretaker to catalyst, from victim to visionary. A text from Amelia popped up. First day at the marketing firm, nervous but excited. Bianca's heart swelled. She replied, "You'll shine." Mother and daughter, each rising from their own ashes. At noon, Diana stopped by with lunch, a picnic basket filled with sandwiches and laughter. They sat on a rooftop garden, petals brushing their ankles. "Look at you," Diana said, eyes shining. "You built this." Bianca glanced at the skyline, then back to her sister. "We built this," she corrected. "Together." In the afternoon, Bianca recorded her first podcast episode, her soft, steady voice recounting themes of resilience, metamorphosis, and the phoenix that rises from the broken shards. Listeners texted mid-show, "Drop a fire if you're ready to soar." Thousands of flames dotted her inbox. As dusk settled, she locked the office door and paused beneath the magnolia tree by the entrance. Petals drifted at her feet like whispered blessings. Bianca bent to pick one up, feeling its softness between her fingers. The world had tried to bury her, but she'd sprung from the ashes stronger than ever. She straightened, tucking the magnolia into her journal. With one last look at her reclaimed domain, she stepped into the evening light, proof that rebirth often follows the fiercest fires. The morning light filtered through the half-open blinds as Bianca settled at her kitchen table, a steaming mug of coffee cradled between her hands. She flipped open her journal to the first page, where she'd scrawled Gregory's betrayal in shaky ink. Now, the same lines felt less like wounds and more like stepping stones. Each entry was an echo of strength, proof that survival had refined her. A notification chimed on her phone, a message from a former client, now a success story. "You gave me back my future," it read. Bianca's throat warmed with pride. These echoes of strength reverberated beyond her own life, rippling through every woman she'd empowered. She walked to the living room, where Amelia unpacked boxes of marketing materials. Her daughter paused, meeting Bianca's gaze with a smile that spoke volumes. "Mom, I sold my first campaign idea today," she said as bright. "Your story inspired me." Bianca felt a surge of joy, an echo of strength passed down like a torch. Outside, birds darted through the magnolia branches, their calls punctuating the spring air. The soft thud of a ball against the fence reminded her of childhood afternoons, another echo of simpler times, when her biggest worry was a missed catch. Life had grown more complicated, but the core of her resilience had always been the same. She returned to her desk, opening her laptop to revise her next workshop slides. The title, Echoes of Strength, Building Unbreakable Foundations, glowed at the top. She paused, letting the words sink in. Foundations weren't built overnight. They were layered, each brick laid with intention, each echo of past victories reinforcing the next. A soft knock sounded at the door. Diana stepped in, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Thought you might need a refill," she said, placing a cup beside Bianca's coffee. They clinked mugs in a quiet toast. No words were necessary. The shared glance held the weight of countless strategies, courtroom dramas, and triumphant breakthroughs. Bianca took a slow sip, letting the warmth flow through her. In that moment, she realized her journey's true legacy, echoes of strength that would outlast any betrayal. Each ripple of resilience would inspire another wave, carrying forward the story of a woman who refused to be broken. And with that, she turned back to her work, ready to build the next layer of her unbreakable foundation. Bianca stood before the full-length mirror in her bedroom, fingertips grazing the fabric of the crimson dress she'd chosen for the evening gala. The color felt daring against her skin, a departure from the understated navy suits she once favored. Tonight, she would unveil a new chapter. No more hiding behind the mask of the dutiful wife, the invisibly strong caregiver. It was time for authenticity in vivid color. She slipped into the dress, its silk brushing like soft fire along her shoulders. The mirror reflected a woman transformed, posture erect, shoulders back, eyes gleaming with intent. She applied a bold shade of lipstick, ruby red, a mantra on her lips. Each brushstroke peeled away layers of doubt until only confidence remained. At the gala's entrance, a glittering chandelier cast diamonds of light across polished marble floors. Bianca greeted guests with genuine warmth, her smile unguarded. Conversations flowed, networking opportunities, congratulations on her consultancy success, inquiries about her keynote. She answered with ease, her words honest and unfiltered. A toast was called, and she lifted her glass, the motifs of truth and reclamation echoing in her mind. To authenticity, she declared, voice resonant. May we all find the courage to remove our masks. The crystal glasses chimed in agreement, and she felt a palpable buzz of shared revelation. Throughout the evening, she noticed subtle shifts. Colleagues leaning in when she spoke, old acquaintances offering genuine curiosity instead of polite veneer. The room seemed to mirror her transformation. Polished surfaces gave way to open hearts. Later, she found herself on the rooftop terrace, city lights stretching like constellations below. The cool breeze lifted stray curls from her neck as she exhaled, releasing remnants of the mask she'd discarded. In that moment, the world felt clear and honest, every gaze an invitation rather than a judgment. Her phone buzzed with a message. "Drop a fire if you're done pretending." Bianca tapped the flame emoji twice, a playful nod to her journey. With the city sprawling beneath her and stars overhead, She turned away from the mirror's reflection, secure in the knowledge that her true self was enough. She walked back inside, heels clicking her affirmation. No masks, no pretenses, just the luminous woman she'd always been beneath the betrayal and glass shards. The morning sunlight poured through the cafe's windows as Bianca took her usual corner table, her presence undeniable. She ordered her latte without hesitation, meeting the barista's eye with a nod that spoke of quiet assurance. No longer did she shrink in the background. She filled the space she'd carved out with purpose. Her laptop opened to a live stream chat for her Financial Freedom Fridays. Comments scrolled rapidly. "I feel seen. Thank you for sharing your truth." Each message affirmed her shift from invisible caretaker to visible leader. She smiled, fingers poised over the keyboard, ready to respond. A woman approached, hesitation in her step. "You're Miss Caldwell?" she asked softly. Bianca looked up, heart warming. "Yes." The woman held out a trembling hand. "I came to your seminar last month." Her voice caught. "You gave me permission to be seen again." Bianca took her hand gently. "You were never invisible," she said. "You just needed someone to remind you of your worth." Their exchange drew curious glances from other patrons, but Bianca wore their attention like armor. She had endured whispers behind closed doors. Now, she welcomed the spotlight. The cafe's ambient buzz, the frothing milk, the clink of porcelain, became the soundtrack of her newfound clarity. She closed her laptop and sipped her latte, savoring the rich aroma. Beneath the steam, memories stirred. The nights she'd tiptoed through their grand house, ghosts of her own presence haunting empty rooms. Not anymore. Each breath was a declaration. "I exist. I matter." A ping interrupted her thoughts. Amelia's text. "First campaign, pitch accepted." Bianca's chest swelled. Mother and daughter, standing tall in their respective worlds.